Careful with the champagne, boy. That bottle costs more than your month's salary. The laughter that followed, cut sharper than glass. Under the golden chandeliers of the Voss Corporation Gala, everyone laughed. Everyone except the man holding the tray. Armin kept his eyes low. The crystal bottle in his hands shimmered like it knew it didn't belong in them. Around him, designer suits and diamond necklaces moved like a single wave of arrogance. At the center of it all stood Damien Voss, billionaire, genius, king of his own world. His smile was polished like the floor beneath his shoes. "You have to understand," he said to his guests, raising his glass. "Some people are born to build empires, and some are born to serve in them." The crowd roared again. Cameras flashed. Armin stayed silent, wiping the spilled drops of champagne from the marble floor, each one reflecting his face, small and invisible. But when he looked up for just a second, his eyes met Damien's, calm, still, unbroken. And something about that calm unsettled the billionaire. Just for a heartbeat. "Hey," Damien said, forcing a laugh. "Maybe you can repay me for the spill. Buy my company one day, huh?" More laughter. Louder this time. Even the violin music couldn't hide it. Armin didn't answer. He just nodded slightly, like a man agreeing to a challenge nobody else understood. He turned to leave, but someone shouted, "Who knows? Maybe he will one day." The laughter hit again, echoing through the hall. And that's when Armin's quiet voice cut through it all. "Maybe I will." The room froze. The laughter stopped mid-breath. For a moment, every champagne glass hung in the air, still, suspended, like the night itself had paused. Then Damien's mocking grin returned. "You hear that, everyone? The waiter's going to buy my company." The crowd erupted once more, drowning that single sentence under waves of amusement. But not everyone laughed this time. A few eyes watched Armin as he walked away, straight-backed, unbothered, his expression unreadable. No anger, no shame, just quiet certainty. He placed the tray back on the counter and stepped into the hallway, away from the noise. The muffled music faded, replaced by the low hum of the city outside. Through the glass wall, skyscrapers glowed like silent witnesses. For most people, it would have been just another insult to swallow. But Armin wasn't most people. He stood there for a long moment, his reflection looking back at him. Black vest, worn shoes, eyes that had seen too much. Behind him, laughter echoed faintly, like the memory of a storm. He whispered, almost to himself, "You shouldn't have said that." Mr. Voss. Back inside, Damien was already moving on, charming his investors, raising toasts. "To success," he said. "To people who know their place." The guests laughed again, unaware that they had just witnessed the start of their own downfall. In that moment, one man walked away humiliated, and the other, too proud to realize, had just made his biggest mistake, because in the quiet corners of that gala, someone was already planning, not for revenge born of anger, but justice born of patience. The night glittered on, and while the rich celebrated, the man they mocked walked home under the same stars they thought belonged to them. He didn't have a car. He didn't have wealth. But he had something far more dangerous, memory, and a promise he intended to keep. As the camera of the mind fades on his silent walk, the voice of Damien's laughter still lingers. Mocking, careless, unforgettable, the kind of laughter that history always remembers, right before it disappears, because this was not the story of a waiter. This was the story of the man who would one day own everything they built. "Tell you what," Damien said, swirling his glass of red wine, voice dripping with arrogance. "If this waiter can tell me what makes a company valuable, I'll double his salary tonight." The laughter returned. Loud, cruel, and expensive. Phones came out, cameras turned. The crowd smelled entertainment. Armin stood near the table, tray at his side, eyes fixed on the floor. "Sir," he said quietly, "I'm just doing my job." Damien smirked. "Oh, come on. Don't be shy. You talked big a minute ago. Remember, said you'd buy my company." The guest chuckled again, whispering like school children egging on a fight. Maybe he changed his mind. Or maybe he never had one. Damien leaned closer, lowering his voice, but loud enough for everyone to hear. Afraid to sound stupid, the words hit like a slap. A few guests gasped softly. The kind who love drama, but pretend to hate it. Armin's hands tightened around the tray. He could walk away. He wanted to, but then, in the corner of his eye, he saw her. His mother, a frail woman in a cleaner's uniform, dusting the crystal vases near the stage. Her back slightly bent, her eyes tired, but proud. Armin looked at her, then at Damien, his jaw set. He placed the tray down carefully, like a soldier putting away his weapon before battle. "All right," he said. "Ask." The laughter faded into murmurs. Damien straightened, amused and intrigued. "Good. Let's make this quick." He turned to his guests. "Let's see what happens when ambition meets reality." Then with mock seriousness, he began. "What's the first rule of business, boy?" Armin's reply came without hesitation. "Respect the people who make it run." Damien blinked. The crowd laughed again, but softer this time. "Unsure. Cute answer," Damien said. "But the first rule is, never waste time on people who don't matter." He raised his glass in fake triumph, but Armin didn't react. He simply said, calm as a whisper, "Then I suppose you've been wasting yours for the past 2 minutes." The laughter stopped. It wasn't anger in Armin's tone. It was precision. Every word cut cleanly, politely, but deep. Damien's smile faltered. "Big talk. Let's try something simpler." He snatched a gold pen from his pocket and spun it between his fingers. "Tell me, genius, what's the difference between profit and pocket money?" Some guests snickered. Armin waited until the laughter died. Then he said, "Profit builds something. Pocket money buys silence." A hush spread. A few heads turned. One of Damien's investors muttered, "That's actually true." Damien's grin stiffened. "You read that somewhere, didn't you?" Armin shook his head slightly. "No, I learned it." The crowd began to shift. Whispers replaced laughter. They weren't sure anymore if they were watching a joke or a lesson. Damien stepped back, forcing another laugh, trying to regain control. "Fine. One last question." He leaned in. "You talk like a man who's seen boardrooms. Tell me, what do you even know about business?" Armin's reply was quiet. Enough to know that real business isn't about power. It's about purpose. For a moment, silence. Even the string quartet in the corner hesitated, as if waiting for permission to play again. Then, one of the investors, older, sharp-eyed, chuckled softly. "He talks like he's run a company before." The words slipped through the room like lightning. Heads turned. Damien's jaw tightened. He forced a laugh, louder than before. "Please." This man couldn't afford a calculator. Armin looked at him, unflinching. "Maybe not," he said. "But I built one once." The room froze. Glasses lowered. Phones stopped recording. Even Damien's smirk faded, replaced by confusion. "You... what?" Armin didn't answer. He just looked him in the eye. Calm, patient, dangerous. And for the first time that night, the laughter didn't come back. It hung there, trapped between disbelief and fear, as if the crowd had just realized the story they thought was comedy might not be a joke at all. The air grew heavy. The violins played softer. And Damien Voss, the man who mocked him, felt the first quiet sting of something new. "Doubt? Built one? What, in your garage?" Damien sneered, his laughter sharp enough to slice through the silence. But Armin didn't flinch. He just looked at him, steady, unreadable, like a man watching a storm he already knew would pass. The crowd leaned in. Something had shifted. The arrogance in the room began to wobble, replaced by curiosity. From near the stage, a woman's voice broke through. That's a bold claim. All eyes turned. It was Dr. Lena Cho, a renowned venture capitalist, respected, sharp, and never easily impressed. She stepped closer, her gaze fixed on Armin. What did you mean when you said you built one? Before Armin could speak, Damien waved a dismissive hand. Don't indulge him, Lena. He's probably confusing a calculator app with a company. Lena ignored him. Answer the question. Armin's voice stayed calm. I built a predictive model, one that could read market behavior before it happened. Gasps rippled across the hall. Even the music had stopped. Damien forced a laugh. You mean like the one my company uses? Armin met his eyes. Exactly like that one. The words dropped heavy. Damien froze for half a heartbeat, then laughed again. Too loud, too forced. Oh, that's cute. So you're saying, I stole your idea? No, Armin said quietly. I'm saying you bought it, from the people who stole it. The room went still. Even the guests who'd been sipping champagne now held their glasses mid-air. Dr. Lena's brows furrowed. That's a serious accusation. Armin nodded once. It's not an accusation. It's history. The billionaire's grin began to fade. His tone turned sharp. You think you can just walk in here and embarrass me with fairy tales? Armin took a step forward, calm but commanding. You invited me, Mr. Voss. I was cleaning your floor when you decided to test me. The crowd murmured. The reminder of who Armin was, making every word more powerful. Lena folded her arms. Show us then. If you're telling the truth, prove it. Damien turned toward her, irritated. Lena, you can't be serious. She didn't even look at him. I'm very serious. Damien hesitated, but the crowd was already watching. Backing down now would make him look weak. He smirked again, desperate to regain control. Fine, let's make this interesting. He snapped his fingers. His assistant hurried over with a sleek tablet. Let's see how our janitor handles a real business challenge. You've got 10 minutes to pitch me a company. The audience gasped. Phones lifted again. They could sense something big was coming. Armin looked at the screen, then back at Damien. Why? Because if you're as smart as you claim, prove it. Damien leaned in, his voice dripping with arrogance. Let's see how far those cleaning hands can go in the real world. The words hung heavy in the air. Every eye turned to Armin, waiting. He didn't rush. He didn't speak. He just stood there, thinking. And for the first time, his silence scared Damien more than any insult could. And then softly, Armin said, All right, let's talk business. The audience erupted. The tension in the room snapped like a wire pulled too tight. But behind Armin's steady eyes, something else flickered. Memory, a flash. A small workshop bathed in blue computer light. Another. His younger self coding through the night, hunger gnawing at his ribs, a handshake that should have changed his life. Then betrayal. Papers signed under false promises. His name erased, his dreams stolen. Back in the present, Armin blinked. The memories faded, but the fire they left behind burned steady. Damien smirked, confident again. You've got 10 minutes, genius. Impress me. Armin straightened his vest, his calm returning like armor sliding into place. He looked at Damien, not with fear, but quiet certainty. This isn't about impressing you, he said. It's about reminding you what real genius looks like. The crowd buzzed with energy. Damien's smile twitched. Dr. Lena whispered to the person beside her. Something tells me he's not bluffing. As the lights dimmed slightly, and the stage lights focused on Armin, everyone leaned forward. The laughter that once filled the room was gone now, replaced by something heavier. Anticipation. And in that moment, as the timer started counting down, no one realized that they weren't watching a performance. They were watching a reckoning begin. The timer began to tick. 10 minutes. Damien leaned back in his velvet chair, a smirk playing on his lips. "Don't worry," he said. "I'll try not to laugh too loud." Armin didn't look at him. He stepped closer to the tablet, scrolling through graphs and data with silent precision. The crowd murmured, whispering bets, recording, waiting for him to fail. 5 minutes left, Damien called out mockingly. But Armin didn't rush. He simply looked up, and his voice, calm yet sharp, cut through the noise. "I'm not here to pitch something new," he said. "I'm here to finish something that was stolen." The room fell still. Even Damien's grin faltered. Armin tapped the screen, and a holographic chart projected behind him. A cascade of moving data filled the air. Market waves, predictive analytics, exact forecasts. "This," Armin said, "was my creation, a model that predicted behavioral market shifts 24 hours before they happened." He turned slightly, eyes fixed on Damien. "You renamed it Voss Predict, but its real name was Project Meridian." Gasps swept the room. Dr. Lena leaned forward. "Meridian? That's the name of the system Vostek bought 2 years ago." Armin nodded. "Yes, bought from a middleman. After it was stolen from me." Damien stood up, face tightening. "That's a lie." Armin swiped the screen again. "Really? Then explain this." He opened a file. On the display, timestamps, code signatures, and his name embedded deep inside the source file metadata. The audience craned their necks, cameras flashing, murmurs growing louder. Every line of code, Armin said quietly, "still carries my fingerprint. You can delete a name, Mr. Voss, but you can't erase the truth." Damien's assistant froze. "Sir, he's right. The original metadata." "Shut up," Damien snapped, but his voice cracked. The crowd erupted in gasps and whispers. The billionaire's mask was slipping. Lena spoke, her voice low but firm. "Is this true, Damien? Did you steal his algorithm?" Damien stammered, searching for control. We bought it legally. He has no proof." "I am the proof," Armin interrupted. His voice stayed steady, each word cut and clean. "You built an empire on what I created. You mocked the man who mopped your floor, without realizing he was the architect of your success." The silence that followed was deafening. Then someone in the crowd began to clap. Just one, then two. Then a wave of applause rolled through the hall. Phones filmed every second. Hashtags were already being typed. Damien's face flushed. "You think this will ruin me?" he roared. "I'll destroy you." Armin met his rage with quiet strength. "You already tried." Dr. Lena stepped forward, her eyes locked on Armin. "If this code is real, and it looks like it is, you're not just a janitor. You're the rightful founder of the system that changed modern finance." The cameras turned to her. "Are you saying you believe him?" Someone shouted. Lena smiled faintly. "I don't believe him." She turned back to Armin. No, he's right." Damien froze. What are you doing?" "I'm doing what I should have done years ago," she said. "Investing in the mind that actually built the future." The audience broke into cheers. Damien's power, his control, his arrogance, all of it melted under the light of truth. Armin turned away from the tablet. "You taught me something tonight, Damien," he said softly. "Even gold loses its shine when the hands holding it are dirty." Damien tried to speak, but the cameras were already on Armin. In that moment, under the chandelier light that once mocked him, the janitor wasn't invisible anymore. He was unstoppable. As he stepped down from the stage, Lena walked beside him. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. Armin looked back once at the crowd, the same people who had laughed, now watching him with awe. He smiled. "Start again, but this time, under my name," and behind him, Damien Voss stood frozen, the billionaire undone by the man he thought was beneath him. The crowd chanted Armin's name as the lights dimmed. The story that began with humiliation had just turned into legend. Weeks later, the headlines told a story no one could ignore. Janitor exposes billionaire fraud. The man behind the code. Armin Raza, from mop to millionaire. Clips from the gala flooded every social platform. The moment Damien's empire cracked became the most replayed video of the year. But Armin stayed silent. While the world argued, he built. Inside a small glass office overlooking the city, a room that still smelled faintly of solder and coffee, he sat alone, staring at a screen filled with code, lines of light moving like poetry. His poetry. A knock at the door. Dr. Lena stepped in, holding a folder. "The investors are ready," she said with a small smile. "You just broke the record for fastest funded startup in Asia." Armin smiled faintly. "Then let's make it worth their faith." Lena nodded. "What should we call it?" Armin looked out the window, where the skyline glowed like a circuit board. Meridian Reborn. The name hung in the air. Simple, powerful, full of closure. Then came the press conferences, the interviews. The world now leaned forward to hear the man they once stepped over. But Armin never raised his voice, never bragged, never mocked. He simply told the truth. "I didn't win because I was smarter," he said in one interview. "I won because I stopped believing I was powerless." Meanwhile, Damien Voss's empire collapsed piece by piece. Board members withdrew. Leaks surfaced. Lawsuits reigned. In every photo that surfaced of him, Damien looked smaller, like the walls of his mansion had finally started closing in. One night, long after the chaos had settled, Armin received a message request. It was from Damien. Just 2 words. "You ruined me." Armin read it quietly, then typed his reply. "No," he wrote. "You did." He deleted the chat and closed the laptop. Outside, the city lights shimmered. Endless. Alive. Armin walked to the balcony, wind brushing against his face. For the first time in years, he felt light. Not because he'd won, but because he'd taken back what was his. Below him, the streets moved with the rhythm of dreams. People chasing, falling, rising again. He smiled. His voice, calm and certain, carried in the night air. "They laughed when I was silent. They feared me when I spoke. And now, they'll remember my name." The camera panned up, from the shining city to the stars above. And in that silence, only one truth remained. Sometimes, the world forgets who built it. Until the builder walks back through the front door,